Joining me now is News Corp senior writer and columnist Patrick Carlyon. Patrick, nice to see you. Thanks for joining me. Let's start with the latest inflation numbers. It's fallen to its lowest reading since early 2021. The trimmed mean, the Reserve Bank's preferred measure, dropped 3.2% in the year to December compared to 3.5% in October. Headline inflation increased 2.4% in the 12 months to December compared to 2.8% in October. And the Treasurer was out spruiking the data.
On every measure, we have now made substantial and sustained progress in this fight against inflation. Inflation was much higher and rising fast under the Liberals, and when we came to office, we've been able to get on top of this inflation challenge and to get it down in a very meaningful way.
Patrick, what do you make of the numbers, and are state and federal government subsidies giving us a false indicator of the clear state of play?
Look, this is great news for Australians. It's the first time we haven't had a rate cut since November 2025, and I think we had 13 rate increases on interest rates. These numbers do give the Reserve Bank grounds to actually drop interest rates later this month. Look, the political spin on it is fascinating. Jim Chalmers, I think he used the term soft landing at some point today. After 3 years of being buffeted by, rising interest rates, rising power bills, and a cost of living crisis that really has, really struck Australians hard for so long, to actually suggest that this is a soft landing is pretty ambitious, I think. Look, it's good news. It is definitely good news, and it might have a bearing on the timing of the federal election, given it is the first good news for many, many months for the Albanese government.
Yeah, but will that cut through to votes after, as you said, years of the cost of living crisis? We'll find out. Now, look, there are warnings that DeepSeek risks becoming a greater threat to national security than the Chinese-owned social media platform TikTok. DeepSeek, run by China, says it's developed an AI model that's almost on par with the best of US offerings like OpenAI and ChatGPT. Patrick, I think this is a worry. This is clearly a concern, particularly when it comes to the AI world, but also China. How concerned should we be about it in Australia?
I think we should be slightly terrified, Danica. Look, this took the world by surprise yesterday. We saw the tech stock markets worldwide collapse. No one was expecting this from China. And look, AI is about collecting data. And we know that China can be nefarious in its gathering of data, and it exposes people, it exposes businesses potentially to the misuse of their data in ways that we probably can't even quite fathom at the moment. I think the entire world, all the experts have come out and sort of said, this is scary, watch this space. AI is going to be the future, and China has shown again and again that it is interested in using and in strategically getting ahead of other nations in the Western world by misusing data. So I think it's a pivotal moment in history, this.
I completely agree, and I do agree. I think we should be terrified by this. Now, let's talk about energy. The Nationals leader, David Littleproud, says a potential coalition government will start work on a first nuclear power plant the very first day if elected. Patrick, this contradicts previous comments by the coalition that it would take 2.5 years of community consultations prior. But regardless, how important is it to have a debate in this country on nuclear and energy?
We haven't been allowed to have a debate, have we, for years? And the rest of the world, dozens and dozens of countries are rushing to take up nuclear technology, in great part because AI will use up so much power in the future. Look, and the other thing that has been left out in the debate here is renewables aren't going to cut it the entire time. If we don't have nuclear, then we're going to be reliant on gas and, to a lesser extent, coal for a long time to come. I think we've been very let down by the lack of debate about nuclear. It may not be the answer, but it certainly should be on the table, and it should have been on the table 10, 20 years ago.
We need a discussion on how we're going to keep the lights on in this country, because it's certainly not happening under the renewables fantasy. I agree. Now, this is extraordinary, Patrick. Any public sector project over $10 million in New South Wales now needs to undergo a gender impact assessment before it's approved for funding. The Daily Telegraph's reporting that Treasury has imposed gender impact assessments on new budget proposals, so cycle paths, bus routes, drought initiatives, and the mandates are designed to challenge the perpetuation articulation of gender norms within policy decisions and highlight how women, men or gender diverse people may have different needs from policies. I mean, Patrick, America's moving away from DEI and this sort of nonsense. Why are we chasing it here?
Oh, look, it was interesting, Danica, wasn't it? This sort of got implemented very secretly back in October last year, obviously because they sort of figured out that the wider world and the taxpayers would say, what the hell are you doing? This is crazy. And if you look at some of the rhetoric that you just referred to, it's talking about harmful gender norms and linking those to attacks on women in public places. Well, that's ideology gone mad. You know, we've been fighting sexism for decades and decades, quite rightly. The idea that this is somehow going to help the fight is ridiculous.
Absolutely, especially when you look to America, they're fighting against the DEI, yet here, us taxpayers are forking out money for these sorts of programs. Please. Patrick, Carlyon, nice to chat. Thanks very much for joining us on the show this evening.